Welcome to Unique Stories. Today, we journey back to the 7th century Arabian Peninsula, to a pivotal moment that sits at the intersection of faith, power, and a personal vendetta that would alter the course of religious history. This is not just a story of a single event, but a multi-layered narrative of cause and effect, of a revenge so patient and so profound that its success was only recognized in hindsight. We are exploring the controversial and compelling question: how did a woman named Zeinab achieve revenge against the Prophet Muhammad? A revenge that, according to key Islamic records, was ultimately successful, culminating in his death years after her own. This is the story of Zeinab bint al-Harith, a Jewish woman from the Banu Nadir tribe, and the poisoned meal that became a slow-acting instrument of fate. To understand the depth of her actions, we must first set the stage. The year is 628. The location is Khaybar, a lush oasis dominated by formidable fortresses and home to powerful Jewish tribes. The Muslim army, led by Prophet Muhammad, has arrived. The conflict, known as the Battle of Khaybar, was the culmination of years of political and military tension. For the Muslim community, it was a decisive victory, securing wealth and consolidating power in Medina. For the tribes of Khaybar, it was a catastrophe. Among the casualties was the chieftain, Kinana ibn al-Rabi, and among the captives was his wife, Zeinab. Her world had been shattered. Her husband, her father, and her brother had been slain. She was now a prisoner of the very force she held responsible for her devastation. From this crucible of grief and powerlessness, a steely, dangerous resolve was forged. Open rebellion was impossible, but a clandestine strike, that was within her power. The opportunity presented itself during a feast to celebrate the victory. Zeinab, perhaps leveraging her status or a feigned acceptance of her new reality, took it upon herself to prepare a meal for the Prophet and his inner circle. The dish was a roasted lamb, a generous and seemingly gracious offering, but Zeinab had transformed this symbol of hospitality into a weapon. She infused the meat with a potent, fast-acting poison. Some historical accounts, like those in the Sirat Rasul Allah by Ibn Ishaq, suggest she inquired which part of the lamb the Prophet favored most, and she concentrated the poison there, in the shoulder. Now we arrive at the moment that has been dissected for centuries, a moment where history and theology intertwine and where the official narrative may have been carefully shaped. The platter was set before Muhammad and his companions. The atmosphere was likely one of relief and celebration. The Prophet, according to the most trusted collection of hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 5, Book 59, Hadith 713, took the poisoned shoulder and bit into it. Here is the critical sequence of events that demands our attention. The hadith states, "The Messenger of Allah took a shoulder of the lamb and chewed a part of it. He placed the meat in his mouth and began to chew. It was at this point that the warning came. The narration continues that he immediately cried out, 'Take your hands away from the food, for by Allah, this shoulder has informed me that it is poisoned.'" This is the cornerstone of the divine revelation narrative. The meat itself spoke to him. But let's analyze the timeline with a critical eye. The revelation occurred after the meat was in his mouth, after his taste buds and senses had contact with it. He knew it was poisoned after he tested it. This sequence raises a profound question. If the divine warning was absolute and preemptive, why did it allow for the initial taste? Why not prevent the bite altogether? Many scholars and historians argue that this detail, the act of tasting first, suggests a more human experience. Perhaps the poison had a distinct acrid taste or a strange texture that triggered an immediate physical reaction and subsequently a divine confirmation of his suspicion.
This interpretation is far more aligned with the tactile reality of the moment. However, later theological custodians seeking to reinforce the doctrine of perfect divine protection for the prophet may have refined this event into a more direct, preemptive miracle, effectively editing out the human sensory experience to present an unimpeachable supernatural event. The consequences of that single bite were immediate and tragic for one person. Bishr ibn al-Bara, a beloved companion who had also eaten from the meat and swallowed it, collapsed and died swiftly. Muhammad, having only chewed and spat out the morsel, survived the immediate assassination attempt. Zeinab was swiftly apprehended and brought before the Prophet. The confrontation was dramatic. When questioned, she did not deny her actions. Instead, she offered a chillingly logical justification, a statement preserved in the historical records. "You have inflicted suffering on my people, so I said to myself, if he is a king, I will relieve the people of him, and if he is a prophet, then he will be informed of the poison." Her words were not just a confession, they were a theological test. She was putting his claim of prophethood on trial with her own life as the wager. Convinced by her motive, or perhaps respecting the stark logic of her test, Muhammad is recorded as having forgiven her. However, other accounts, including some found in Sunan Abi Dawud, state that she was later executed in retribution for the death of Bishr ibn al-Bara. Her story, it seems, ends here, but the poison story was just beginning. For the next 4 years, Muhammad continued to lead the Muslim community, witnessing its rapid expansion and consolidation. But he was not the same. The effects of the poison never truly left him. He would frequently mention the incident at Khaybar, and his companions attested to the lingering physical toll it took on him. The poison had entered his system, a latent agent of destruction working slowly and invisibly. We now fast forward to the year 632, to the final illness of the Prophet Muhammad. As he lay on his deathbed, suffering greatly, he made a connection that forever linked his demise to that feast years earlier. The testimony is again from the most authentic collection, Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 7, Book 71, Hadith 664. In his final days, he said, "I still feel the effect of that morsel I took at Khaybar." This is not a casual remark. This is a deathbed statement, a direct attribution of cause. His companion, Abu Huraira, is reported to have been even more explicit, stating, "Had it not been for the poison, the Prophet would not have been martyred." Let us absorb the weight of these statements. The leader of the Muslim world in his final hours did not attribute his death to old age or a simple illness. He pointed a finger back through time to the act of a woman seeking vengeance for her family. So what is the ultimate conclusion we can draw from these loyal and respected Islamic records? The evidence presents a compelling and coherent narrative. The Prophet Muhammad's death was a direct, long-term consequence of the poisoning attempt by Zeinab ibn al-Harith. While he survived the immediate assassination attempt, the toxin inflicted a permanent degenerative injury to his health. Zeinab's revenge was not the swift death of a sword stroke, but the slow, grinding victory of a biological agent. Her plan, in its ultimate outcome, was a success. The theological narrative that he knew the food was poisoned through a clear preemptive divine revelation before any contact appears to be a later dogmatic addition. The original records clearly place the revelation after he tasted the meat. This editing for religious purposes is understandable from a faith perspective. It seeks to protect the doctrine of divine oversight, but it obscures the more nuanced, human, and historically plausible sequence of events. Muhammad knew after he tested it, likely through a combination of sensory perception and divine confirmation, not before. Zeinab's story is often a footnote, overshadowed by grander political and military narratives, but her legacy is immense. She is a figure of profound tragedy and unexpected agency. With a single, calculated act, she set in motion a chain of events that led to the passing of one of history's most influential figures. Her name is forever etched into the foundational story of Islam, not merely as a villain, but as the successful architect of a revenge that was as patient as it was potent. A revenge that waited 4 years to claim its final, definitive victory.
Thanks for watching.